Hello, it's Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. Welcome back. And this, today, is Trader Joe's Harvest Blend Herbal Tea. I need herbal tea, it's nighttime, but what I really need is autumn. And that's why I'm drinking this autumnally themed, autumnally? It's autumn themed. And I like the fox in the picture, and I like the leaves, and I miss autumn and already. And I always tell myself every August I'm going to not get thinking about autumn yet. It's too early. And then suddenly I find myself buying autumn clothes. I find myself buying sweaters and boots and more boots and more sweaters and some tights. This year, I am trying to not do so. I've been doing pretty good the past year or so, but I even though, yes, I love all that stuff, I have to put myself on a little bit of a no-spend situation with clothes because I just have too many clothes. I broke the curtain rod in my closet because I had too many clothes. I blame my cat because he's very overweight and he jumped on the rod. I'm pretty sure he did it. But instead of blaming him entirely, I had to just really cull my clothes and stop buying more. But you know, the problem is when you stop buying one thing, you sometimes end up filling the void with something else, unless you have self-control, which I seem to have very little of. But so as you know, from a couple weeks ago, I did a haul, and I decided to stagger it because I can't show them all in one video. I don't want you guys to fall asleep. So I decided to stagger once again, and these aren't even all the books that I've got. But I'm going to show you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books, and that I've picked up recently. Some actually I picked up a few months ago, so it's not completely crazy spending right now. Some of these are on discount. Let's begin with the one that was on discount, but was the most fancy pants of all of these. So I had bought, so it should be in the haul, but it's not, the Mysterious Affair at Styles not too long ago by Agatha Christie, and it is Hercule Poirot's first mystery, first novel, and that's great. I wanted to start from the beginning. I've read one or two of his in the past, and I've seen all the David Suchet versions of the stories, but I've not read most of those stories, not read most of the books. So I wanted to rectify that situation, so I want to start from the beginning, and for Classics-a-thon, I'm reading that, and I'm doing well, and I'm almost done, and I'm loving it. And I also started, side note, War and Peace, and I do seem to like the story itself, but the names are taking some getting used to. But that's another story for another time. But this book is my next Poirot purchase, and it is 3 books in one, so it's not just the Orient Express, Murder on the Orient Express, which I have knowledge of. I know whom did it, and that's fine. I kind of know the motives, I know, etc. But I have never actually sat through the book. I've seen versions of it on television and maybe a film and a school play version that I did at some point, which probably has little to do with the actual story. So I want to read that for real, and I love the end papers because it's beautiful and it's all very Poirot-ish. It's got bow ties and mustaches, oh my, and hats, oh my, oh my. I'm stuck on oh my. So let's keep talking. And so it has the murder of Roger Ackroyd, which I've also seen portrayed, as well as Curtin, Poirot's last case, which I'll probably save to a later, much later time when I've read a lot more of his books, because I don't want to read the ending at the beginning. That's depressing. And speaking of Agatha Christie, there's another detective writer who was a woman who was very popular at the time and is not as popular now, but I know some people who read her stuff. And I had started one of her books, and it was good, but I had to return it to the library, which is crazy. So I decided, I have another book of hers, but this is also the debut of this particular story. And we have Dorothy L. Sayers in this little bathtub, which is kind of creepy. Whose body? It is a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery. I think he's like the main detective. I mean, I know I read a book or some of a book, but I really got to start over again. And I like this volume. I bought it in a little bookshop in Midtown called Book Off, which has discounted books. And that's great. So while we're on detective stories, I have another one who is not Sherlock Holmes, but is Sherlock Holmes, if you know what I mean. Pastiches, I'm a little wary of, like with Jane Austen. Some of them are really good, and some of them aren't. So I try to ask around people who might know something about that. And I have a friend who's a bit of an expert in her way of Sherlock Holmes stories and pastiches and etc. And yeah, so I think I actually may have mentioned something about her before because she wrote something in a collection that I mentioned very early on in a haul. But she also is very good at poetry, so I look to her for poetry recommendations as well. But she recommended this story. It's a combination of Jack the Ripper story, which I'm not really into, but this might be good, and Sherlock Holmes. So Dust and Shadow by Lindsay Fay. You see the glare is because it was a former library book, which is kind of annoying. Not so much because of the dust jacket, because I kind of like the dust jacket. It feels nice, but the sticker is irritating. Want to rip it off. At least cover it up. But you know what? Maybe if the story's that good, I will be so distracted by the story, as one should be, that I won't notice. I hope. I got it online. Buyer beware. I mean, if that's the worst thing in life, then, let's not stress it. Okay, so 2 more novels that don't really have much to do with each other. This is, I saw this mentioned by Katie from Books and Things. I'm pretty sure it was her, because I know she's into Japanese books as well, and as well as other things, obviously. And I read a book about a cat that was a Japanese book, and it was depressing, and I want something to make up for it. So when she showed this story, A Cat, a Man, and 2 Women by, I gotta say, Junichiro Tanizaki, I said, I have to try it, and it's small, so even if I didn't like it, but I have a feeling I might like it because the writer, who's long gone, is obviously a cat lover. So, I hope it's a comedy, but even if it's not, even if it's poignant, let's go for it. This is a book that my sister asked me if I'd read or if I had any of her books. And I said yes, because, why not? And I totally did not. So, liar. And so I realized I must rectify the situation. And so I bought Love in a Cold Climate by Nancy Mitford. I like this edition, I think. I don't know who this woman is. Is she... It's a photograph. It's covered by a sticker, so I don't know. But it's from the National Portrait Gallery, London. Blah. Blah. I've been to the National Portrait Gallery, London. And, anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. I don't know if I'll like this book either, but I probably will because it takes place, I think, in London, and I tend to like books that take place in London. I will do another show, episode, what do we call it? Another booktuber moment of London books, like I did with New York books. I probably have more books on London. Let's face it. So this could be maybe included in it. Well, included it did. I'm stuck. Rewind me. And yeah, so I hope it's good. I bought it in a bookshop in Manhattan called Book Culture, and it's down the block from where they did the outside of the Seinfeld restaurant, the coffee shop, if you watch Seinfeld. So I don't know, if you're having one of your tours of New York and you're in the area, maybe go book shopping as well as, having a cup of coffee. So now I have 3 more books, and these are all nonfiction. I have always been a fan of nonfiction, and what I like about it, and I think I'm going to mention this again, is that you can tell a story without making it up. And I love fiction as well, but nonfiction sometimes is even better. So I will always embrace nonfiction books, and so I will always, when I'm having a haul, I'm gonna have some nonfiction. And this one, I like books about birds, like I like books about trees, and I like books about foxes and kitty cats. Oh, and sometimes dogs, but whenever I have books about dogs, the dog usually dies at the ending. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so actually, pretty much any book about pets, I'm like, okay, I will read it until the last chapter and then I won't read it. But this is more about nature in general, so I think I could hopefully handle it. And it's called Gods of the Morning: A Bird's Eye View of a Changing World by John Lister Kay. It's got some beautiful birds and it's got this nice color, which is a very nice, very, very nice color. And I think it's about, I know I read about it. It's about Scottish landscape, so Scotland and birds. I can't. This is just like such a great combination of subjects that I love. So I've heard of John Lister Kay. I think I have a book of his. I think it's the one with the cat in the front that looks angry, which I haven't read yet. So let's get cracking. Cats and birds. Cats and birds. It's got a blurb from Helen MacDonald, who wrote H's for Hawk. And I started H's for Hawk because I heard it was a really amazing book. And I think it's a memoir about a woman who gets into hawking. And I don't know if she was already into hawking or if she got more into hawking after her father died. And, you know, sometimes stories that have a father dying in it makes me sad because I lost my own father. And I'm like, do I want to go there? But I think I want to go there. But I don't have the book yet because I took it out of the library and I had to return it. See? This is a problem. I still encourage libraries because we should all go to libraries. But if you're like me and you have all these crazy hauls and you have books from 10 years ago that you haven't what's the word? Oh yeah, read. Then yeah, we got to slow down those library checkouts. Anyway, speaking of books about books and inspiration for writing, this is not really a book about inspiration for one's own writing, though I sometimes find that when I read about other people's inspiration, it inspires me as well, and I could use that because my writing lately has been almost non-existent. See, I can't even come up with words anymore because my writing skills have been highly ignored. I barely have been using my fountain pens, which is another story for another time. But sometimes what helps me is just reading about what other writers got inspired by. So I saw this book over a year ago, I think, or about at least last year. No, it had to have been a year ago because that's when I went to Book People in Austin for the last time. Austin, Texas, the capital, just in case you were wondering. My sister lives in San Antonio, which is not that far from Austin. So not all of our trips, but a lot of our trips will take the trip up. It's about an hour and a half. And we will go to Austin and we will always go to Book People because it's a wonderful independent bookshop, which I highly recommend. And it's huge and you can spend your whole life in there, but we usually spend an hour or so. And I saw this book and I said I want it, and I didn't get it because I'd already bought a lot of books at the time and I feel sad about that. So I ended up buying it online, which, you know, I always try to buy books in bookshops, but sometimes I find things online and sometimes they have a cute little, this is not how much I spent on it either, but I like the sticker. I don't usually like stickers, but because I'm a crazy Anglophile, it's got the little pound. I have crazy reasons for liking things, but you know what? We all do. So we have reached the end of my books for today. And this is a book that it's one of my latest purchases because I was at a bookshop. I was at a lot of bookshops with my sisters, both my sisters, but this was when I was with my younger sister, who the one who lives in Texas, who was in town last week. And whenever my sisters and I get together, we just go to bookshops and, it's our thing. And usually tea places and places with a lot of sugary foods. We indulge. And so we went to a bookshop that she had heard from me that was quite good. Is that a sentence? She had heard from me that was good, and it had a cat in it, so of course we had to go. And it was Community Bookstore in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And the cat's name is Tiny the Usurper, and said cat has its own Instagram. And I love following cats on Instagram more than people, because cats. And but I'm talking about cats too much. So while I was in this bookshop, I saw a lot of books I wanted. It actually has a lot of books about nature, which is great. But this is not necessarily about nature. This writer wrote a book about letter writing that I read a couple of years ago and enjoyed, as well as a book about maps that I quite liked. I'm not a map. There's a word for loving maps. Cartographophile? Well, whatever it's called. Map lovers would love that book. And usually, if you like maps, you also like timekeeping. And this reminds me of when I went to Greenwich in London, and I went to the observatory, the Royal Observatory, where they have the international date line, where it's supposed to be like, Greenwich Mean Time. It's supposed to be the center, 0 degrees longitude. And of course, I stood in it, took pictures. They had a really good, about 5 years ago, I think, exhibition on steampunk, which I always kind of like steampunk. I'm not obsessed with it, but I like the style, and I like all the stuff that they do with timepieces and gears. And of course, I was obsessed with Doctor Who. I still love it, but I'm not as obsessed now. I'm having a slightly obsessional hiatus, and that's fine because there's plenty of other things I can do with my time, obviously. So yeah, and long story short, this writer wrote a book called Timekeepers. Simon Garfield. Simon Garfield, how the world became obsessed with time. So I'm definitely not the only person who is obsessed with time. I'm not really obsessed with time, let's face it. But I like the first sentence in the description. It says, "Time flies like an arrow, but fruit flies like a banana." That was something my dad used to say, and I always thought he made it up, or I just assumed. But then again, I guess not, unless this Simon Garfield somehow heard my father at some point, which I highly doubt. And I'm not going to sue him after all. So I think that I'm going to like this book, and besides the aesthetic, because I like blue books. It's just me. A lot of things with blue in it this time. Blue's not even my favorite color. I like it though. It's peaceful, and yeah, I just like the feel of it. Like I don't know what the word is when you're holding something, and it just feels right. So it's not all about that, but let's go for it. So yeah, I think I'm going to like all of these books, and were there 8 books? So even if I like 5 books out of 8 books, then pretty much successful, right? Let's do the math, maybe? Let's not do the math and say we did. So that has been this episode of Taking Tea with Catherine. That is not the end of my hauls, but it is the end of my major hauls. So if you liked these books, or if you've read these books without giving away spoilers, please let me know what you think of it, and which one you recommend I read first, if you've read any of these, because I like a kickstart. And if you've been to these bookshops, or if you have any bookshops that you recommend in your area, feel free to recommend, and feel free to subscribe, and feel free to have a cup of tea. This has been Taking Tea with Catherine. Nice talking to you. Happy reading. Bye!